I'm recording, Chris.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. Welcome to the show. Hi, magician Brian Barrett, and here we are today, and it is a sunny Tuesday. Is it Tuesday or Wednesday?
Oh, I think it's Tuesday. Is it? No, it's Wednesday. Wednesday. Yeah.
Sunny Wednesday in London. Brian is over somewhere exciting. Probably he wants to keep secret squirrel.
At the moment, yes. At the moment.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Excuse me. And today I was talking to a friend of mine this morning about love spells. His name is T, and we were discussing how do people use love spells themselves? How do they do it at home? Now, it could be somebody that knows that their partner that they might have fallen out with is part of their soul family. And so, I guess they don't want to get hardcore. Maybe they do want to get hardcore. What's your feelings about this, Brian?
Okay, I think the simplest explanation is leaves on a tree. Yeah, okay. When the leaf has completed its task, it just falls off the tree. Trying to keep the leaf on the tree is virtually impossible or requires some really nasty chemicals that will destroy all the environment. And I believe that's much the same with a love spell. If love has gone out of the relationship, trying to rekindle it with love, I believe is incredibly dangerous. Not only that, we've got like evidence from it that there are many people that I know who have done this to keep their relationship alive, and it's completely backfired, to put it bluntly, because essentially for somebody to love you, then realistically it's got to be from the heart, it's got to be from the soul. And if it's not there and you try and induce this, then you're going to have to use an entity. And if you're going to use an entity like Asmodeus or Lilith, then you're going to a dark side, and the result will not be good. I can tell you that from people that I know who have done it, to put it bluntly.
Yeah. Hello? Maybe it's someone that they're with that they normally get on with and they're just arguing, that kind of thing.
Well, I mean that I would say, would you believe that one of the oldest forms of witchcraft service was counselling?
What is counselling?
Counselling.
Oh, counselling.
Yeah, literally. They used to go and see the witches and the wise women, and they would sit down, and the magicians, and they would sit down and they would have a counselling session. That was originally classed as witchcraft.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, realistically, if you're not getting on with somebody, the best way to do it is to literally have some kind of professional person talk you through what your problems are in your relationship. Using demons, angels, etc., really, it's the last thing that you should do, because everything costs. Yeah. So if you are going to say use a servitor, for example, you're going to have to do a deal with this servitor, and if you get the deal wrong, it's going to cost you some form of spiritual or physical pain. So realistically, the last thing always is to use supernatural forces, because, you know, they're not toys. And that's where a lot of people make the mistake. They believe that they can induce these forces and literally nothing happens. I mean, the other day I was at a relative's farm, and they hadn't had rain on their farm for a long time. And I said to them, "Do you want me to make it rain?" And they said, "Yeah," thinking I was joking. And I made it rain for them. Literally, it hadn't rained for months, and I made it rain. And the rain came down and watered all the crops and saved all their money, to put it bluntly. However, afterwards, they didn't take me seriously, and I said, "Look, I have saved your crops. You must sacrifice an animal." And they put off sacrificing a chicken. And as I drove away, the front of my car just touched a tree, and it pulled the front end of it off. Yeah, because essentially the god was unsatisfied. So although like I did good, but the person didn't do it, I was the one who ultimately paid the price for that mistake. Yeah. And then eventually they did eventually say okay, and they slaughtered the chicken and put its blood over the land. But this is when you're dealing with supernatural entities, you are dealing with gods and goddesses and demons and jinns that are thousands and thousands of years old. We're only on this plane of existence for about maybe 60, 70 years, 80 years if you're very, very lucky. And that's the problem. That's the problem with all this. And
you mean they're more experienced because they've been living everlasting?
Well, absolutely. Yeah, that's that is that's their advantage. And of course, the primordial drives is how they manipulate humans, which is something that we should always understand. And so I always, when people ask me about love spells and stuff like this, it's something I stay well away from. Of course, I know how to make a love spell. I can tell you how to make a love spell now. Would I recommend you making a love spell? No, I wouldn't.
Well, we'll go through it so the listener knows how someone might do it.
All right, okay. If you wanted to make, say, one of the best love spells is to use a servitor. Yeah, okay. A servitor is a kind of a jinn. Okay. You can use Asmodeus. You could use
Astarte. I heard J.S. Barrot uses Astarte.
Possibly, it depends what relationship you have with the god. You can use.
Starting from that, would say you said Asmodeus, would they get hold of their sigil?
Well, once again, it depends how you're working. Yeah, what type of magician you are. Your sigils really are connected to what we would call chaos magicians. Yeah, okay. The ritualistic magician has two methods. He would either use a statue, or he would use, or he or she would use a black mirror, and they would summon the entity into the statue or into the black mirror. Okay.
Is that what John Dee used to use? Because he used a black mirror, right?
Well, black mirrors. I don't know if he used a black mirror or not. Essentially, he used. We don't know, because a lot of John Dee's work was destroyed. Yeah. Okay. And the Enochian system was only found by mistake, and quite a lot of the papers had been used to line pans so they could cook food. So it's not quite a full system. The other thing as well, which is also makes John Dee a little bit spurious, is the fact that his assistant Kelly was a known confidence trickster. Okay, that actually cut his ears off. I mean, I've read reports that he used a crystal. He may well have used. I mean, I've also read that they used a scrying mirror, so he could have used a scrying mirror. But I think the safest bet is that we don't really know, because so much of his work was destroyed. If that makes sense, sense.
And how do you make a black mirror? Is it just a mirror painted with black paint?
Well, that's the bullshit way, really. Okay, yeah. I mean, it's sort of it's just garbage. An original black mirror is obsidian.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and what you have to do is you have to make a frame that supports the mirror without any nails or any metal whatsoever, and then you place the obsidian within the frame. Okay, and then of course you set candles around it and stare into the obsidian mirror, and then whatever system of magic you use, you then evoke the god to come through to you. Okay.
And how do you call that god? So say I was calling Asmodeus, wouldn't I need the sigil, his sigil? How does he know I'm calling? Just by saying his name?
Well, I mean, rule number one, you know his name. Okay. Yeah. So you can summon him. You could, if you wanted, make a sigil, but like I said, that is mainly the realm of the chaos magician. Yeah, they're the ones who make the sigils. What people tend to do is they will tend to, if ritualistic magicians will have a statue of Asmodeus. Yeah. To concentrate on, or they will have an incantation written from a book, because how Asmodeus will appear is how culturally relevant his image is to yourself. Okay, yeah, for example, when I'm in India, I know really dark magicians in India, and they tell me that they know when the neophyte is lying, because they describe the entity they're seeing in an Indian term. Okay. Where if you were seeing the entity in your own mind's eye, it would have a cultural formation that you can relate to. Okay, for example, the jinn within the Arabic system are completely different to the fairy of, say, the European system. However, they're pretty much the same thing. Yeah. Okay. But it's how they appear to you, which sort of culturally, and that's something very important to understand, that when one is working with entities, is to not create something that actually doesn't exist. Is to really use the third eye. Yeah. Okay. And for that, one has to be in a state where you have no ego, and that you are completely open to the energies. And when you are completely to the energies, then the entity will appear in the form that it is. However, usually when you have opened your third eye, etc., etc., the energy usually appears as light or some kind of coloured light. Yeah. Okay.
Why is that? Why is that?
Well, because it's sort of that's really what they are. You know, I mean, they are beings of light, and the way we form them is, if you like, through our imagination. However, if you
Oh,
are
I see.
disciplined and you are trained in meditation, then you will see them as they are, which is, you know, which is light. And the light does tend to be of a different color as well, depending on what kind of elemental that you know you are dealing with, which is, you know, which once again is quite important if you are dealing with making a love potion, so to speak. You know, you need to be working really, I mean, sort of, I don't believe there's such a thing as a love potion. I do believe there's such a thing as a lust potion. So you're working with like the passions, you're working with like, you know, the fire, and you're working with earth, and you're probably working with wind. Yeah. Okay. So you know, these are the elements that you would be working with. I do think that love has very little to do with any kind of servitor or any kind of love spell, because to get the servitor to work for you, the witches will have a bottle, and the first thing they will ask the person who wants their love interest to fall in love with them or become obsessed with them is they usually ask for hair and nail clippings, which are put inside the bottle. Then, depending on the witch, usually objects associated with love or plants associated with love are put inside the bottle. Then usually, if it is a woman who is asking for the servitor to work for them, they usually use menstrual blood. If it's a man, it's usually urine. And then the bottle is, and the servitor is activated, and it's usually hidden somewhere near or even in the house of the person that you want to attract. And you constantly read this spell to the servitor, and the servitor will make that person fall in love with you.
Well, where does it, so after you've made up the body, say I wanted you to fall in love with me. Sorry, it's funny.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'd have to steal some of your hair. I'd put it in the
That would
bottle.
be difficult.
I'd put it in the bottle, and then I'd add flowers, rose petals, and then menstrual blood. It's quite a mix. Shake it
Yeah.
up, and then say I.
But first you have to call your servitor, yeah,
All
and
right.
put it in the bottle, yeah. Okay.
So I would call Asmodeus down and put him in the bottle.
I wouldn't if I was you. I would probably go for a servitor. You know, maybe ask Asmodeus to send you a servitor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah?
What's the servitor?
Yeah.
What's the servitor?
A servitor is kind of like, I suppose the closest thing that we can get our head round is it's a type of a jinn. Okay, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's a type of a jinn or a fairy, and essentially the good magic workers will work out what the servitor requires. It could be incense, it could be the blood of an animal, it could be your blood. Yeah, okay. You know, one has to work with an adept who can communicate with the servitor to find out what it wants. Once sorry,
hang on.
yeah.
So do you give it? Say it wants blood, or do you give it to it before it gets in the jar?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you need it to go in the jar. Yeah,
But then
and the other
it's
thing is
cruel.
yeah, but then you have to say to it, how long it's going to be in the jar.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, because if you don't, then if you annoy it, it's going to start getting nasty. So,
Can it come out by itself?
Not really, because essentially you're binding it to the jar. Yeah. There's lots of ways of releasing it. I mean, some people break the jar. Yeah. Okay. So the servitor can escape. Others just take the top off so it can escape. The real magicians will actually find who is the tribe leader of the servitor that you are using, and then we'll send it back to its tribe. Yeah. Okay. Or its group of people. It really isn't. I mean, when you see on YouTube, you see these very naive people saying, "Oh, this is how you do it. This is how you don't." Well, no, you don't. You have to first contact the servitor. You then have to get a relationship with the servitor. The servitor then goes in the bottle. You then put all the stuff that you need within the bottle, which usually the servitor will tell you. But I can guarantee you that if it's a love spell, it will certainly have blood in there. Many witches will use servitors for protection as well. I don't know if you know that.
How will they use servitor for protection?
Right, it's pretty much the same way. They have a small bottle and they put everything that they find like harmful. Like they'll put broken glass in it. They'll put nails. Yeah. Okay. They might even put a poisonous plant in it. Okay. They'll also put menstrual blood or urine. They put the servitor in there, and then they usually put the bottle in a drawer in a room, usually in a black velvet bag. But once again, that will be only for a limited time, because the deal is that the servitor has to escape at some stage. Yeah.
So how long would it be for?
Well, I mean, some have been in there for like hundreds of years. But what happens is, yeah, but like for example, the Dybbuk box has a djinn or a servitor inside of it. But what happens is usually the person dies, and the servitor is stuck inside the box or the bottle, and that's when it starts to get aggressive because it wants releasing. Okay, yeah, and it's sort of like people collect these boxes, not understanding what they're actually really collecting.
And what are the boxes called?
A Dybbuk box.
Dybbuk. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, they're pretty much cross-cultural. They're certainly not used in the love spell, but the bottles with all the nice attractive things in and pleasant smells, they are definitely used in the love spells.
Well, apart from the urine and the blood, I mean, that's a bit gross.
Well, no, if you're a male, you'd use urine. If you're female, it tends to be menstrual blood.
And it has to be put
somewhere near.
I couldn't do the love spell on you, even if I got some of your hair. That's funny. Because how would I do it if it was someone in a different country?
Somebody in a different country. Well, that's where your servitor comes into play. I mean, essentially, what you would do is you would speak to the servitor, get the bottle how the servitor wanted it. Yeah, okay. And then you would literally send the servitor to the person that you wanted to fall in love with you. All right. Okay.
Oh, you'd send it.
Yeah, you'd send it.
You can't keep it yourself.
Unless you wanted to love yourself, I don't know.
Oh, I
But,
see. So the person has to get it.
yeah, but you can send it. But I mean, that's more or less. I mean, once again, that's a highly skilled magician who can literally almost visually hold the look of the person and then send the servitor to it. Yeah. Okay. It will take a little bit longer because the bottle's no longer near them, but certainly it will work.
Oh,
Okay.
so the magician would hold the bottle in their hands, and instead of putting the servitor in the bottle, they'd send it to the person.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. And
Yeah.
then what
Which
would
is
they do with the bottle?
well, as soon as the person's there and you've got what you wanted, that's when you're supposed to break the bottle.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
Or allow the servitor to escape. But like I said, it's a lot more complicated than what these guys think it is. I mean,
Hmm.
it's virtually the same spell to kill somebody as well.
Wow.
So that
We best
tells
not
you,
talk about that on YouTube.
yeah, but that tells you how close and how dangerous making a love spell is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty much the same procedure.
You were
But
saying to invoke fire, wind, and earth. So how would you do that?
well, for that you would, depending how you worked. If you were a candle worker, you would use the associated candles. Yeah,
Hmm.
okay. If you were a ritual magician, depending of what discipline you worked in, sort of like, say for example, if you were Greek, then you would use the gods and goddesses associated with earth, wind, and fire from the Greek pantheon.
Right.
If you were Arabic, then you would use the same Arabic pantheon to represent the creatures. The entities.
Right.
So it's the other thing as well that you have to get right, of course, is the astronomical alignment. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's really important. Understanding, where what house the sun is, etc., etc., or what house the moon is, depending on what type of relationship you wanted. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, it's